Got it. Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our Refresh Agility Leadership Meetup group. Today, we'll be looking at how to improve organizational agility, which is especially salient in our current environment. In this panel event, we'll be looking at common challenges and tips for success as we move into 2021. The way we'll be breaking this down is about 45 minutes of the panel, and we'll introduce ourselves soon, and then over to about 45 minutes of Q&A, where the real magic of these meetup groups happens. For many of you, I'd imagine this is your first time at the Agility Leadership Meetup group, notwithstanding that this is our first relaunch event, actually, so that makes sense for all of us. Before this was called Agile Leadership London, and embracing the current environment and the virtual meetings that we're all in, we decided to kind of expand horizons and not just limit this to London, but enable this to cross boundaries and have more participants globally. So since it's your first time, I'll just tell you a bit more about the group. We're a community of and for Agile leaders that provide you with the opportunity to hear from people who've had successes, who've had failures, and learn about tools and practices that work, and ask questions and network with one another.
Yeah, and look, Ash, thanks very much. I'm really pleased to be able to relaunch this with my good friend Ash, and it's been a journey of many weeks and months to us to sort of get to this point, so thank you very much. And we now have over 870 members of this meetup group, which is fantastic, and it has grown at a really great rate, with us being able to sort of share some of the things that we've got upcoming in 2021 as well. And we're here because we want to provide these online panel events, these online discussions, these online talks, and share webinars and events on the most relevant and most sort of thought-provoking agile topics, just like this one today with our guests Russ and Alex. I also want to be able to sort of share some of the other things that we've been involved with, especially over the lockdown period, that I know many of the people here today are actively involved with. Things like the Agilistas Slack group, and if people want to find out more with that and actually come along and be part of that as well, and work with and share some thought leadership with some of the amazing people, please do feel free to ping us after this. We've also got things like the Agile Confessional, which is another sort of spin-off as part of what we've been doing. And it's great that actually two of the confessees are actually here tonight in the audience. You can do a quick wave and say hello and let everybody know who you are. And their episodes are available to listen to on agileconfessional.com. So again, please do feel free to go and have a listen. But also, if you want to be part of any of the community events that Ash and myself and others are sort of really trying to grow and have that collaborative community event, then please do feel free to get in touch with us and link through obviously all the relevant channels. So I'm one of your MCs for the evening. I'm Giles. I'm a former CTO and now CEO of Agile Delta Consulting. And I've been in the Agile world for many years. And I have been obviously working and doing a lot of different meetups with a lot of different groups over the last 6, 7, 8 months as well. And allowing lots of people to have first-time talks at meetup groups, trying to get new blood and new fresh ideas and new people sharing some amazing outcomes as well. So again, if anybody would like to be part of a future event or has something that they would like to share with us at a future meetup, then please do come along and get in touch. I think I'm frozen now.
Are, and if you've got one of those at the top table, that's almost enough for it to spread. There's a little bit of an idea of a contagion, and sometimes, and you'll never know this is going on, but they coach each other and they do support each other. So you can sometimes see that little spread. In fact, a CEO once confessed to me about a toxic leader, and he said, "You don't know how much work he's doing behind the scenes." You know, and that was a lovely little bit of insight to realize that they both knew what development was happening, that nobody else was allowed to know, which was lovely, really.
Yeah, in some ways, that that leader who's standing out as being a bit toxic is to me a little bit easier to deal with than the person who's in the background undermining without really coming out and being overt about it. And I've had those problems before, and they're actually, they can catch you unawares because the person is just being passive.
Yeah.
Ash, can I bring you in at this point, and have you got any insights you can share with the community?
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with what you guys have already said, and especially Russ and Alex, your point on the alignment on key problems and aligning the change drivers. I see that pretty often with the companies I work with. You know, the main challenge is in aligning a team or an organization that their current ways of working just are no longer working, or they're not working well, and realizing something needs to change and embracing agility to get there, where agility is the right answer to that context. The next challenge I see, say you do get aligned and you're aligned on what the problem statement is and something needs to change. The next challenge I see is once you get going, seeing teams and individuals being uncomfortable in ambiguity and uncomfortable with the unknown, where you don't know upfront what the outcomes or final product will look like. And then as part of this, I see people, you know, starting and teams starting on this journey, and then it just gets hard, right? It just gets challenging. And then there's the risk where people just revert back to the comfort zone. So, you know, the challenge of not giving up when it starts to get tough, and not revert back to old practices that are more comfortable by familiarity alone. So
even if they're more negative practices.
Even if they're more negative practices, don't go back to it when she gets started. You know, it's going to be hard. I don't know anyone who's started their agile journey and got it right. You know, all times, every time, every company has a different journey to take. Every team has a different journey to take. So I think accepting that we're all going to get it wrong at some point and be okay with that, because if you're embracing the agile mindset and receiving feedback quickly and pivoting on that, that's what matters most.
And actually, that could be the biggest challenge, is making it okay to go, we're not going to get this right. You know, we're going to do some stuff and it's going to be wrong. That almost goes against the wisdom of an awful lot of, you know, our traditional leaders.
Yeah, because you have to admit it, right? It's better to hide it and not actually call it out.
But if we do,
I mean, I think. Sorry, Ashley, that your point around uncertainty is a really good one, and ambiguity. I think a lot of traditional business models struggle with that. They don't like uncertainty. They want to know exactly what's going to happen. They want a business plan, and they want to be able to hold people to account. And so when you come into an organization talking about, well, actually, we don't know the answer yet. We're just trying to work on the problem. We're trying to get the market fit, and you're talking a language that they're going, I just want your 5-year business plan, and I want it to be very, very certain. That is a big challenge to overcome. Getting comfortable with that ambiguity.
Yeah,
I don't think you can get there overnight. That's a journey.
And sorry, I'm hijacking a little bit, but Alex, when we were chatting earlier, you brought in the budgeting angle as being a constraining force.
Oh yeah, that is it's a difficult one. Again, when people are wanting to fund projects, they want a certain ROI. They want to be able to follow the KPIs. They want to be able to run their program meetings and ensure that everyone's on track and they're red, amber, green, and it feels very, very comfortable. And those metrics just don't really work when you're, being agile, when you're trying to test ideas, when you're trying to validate ideas, when you're trying to see if you've even got a business model. That form of KPIs and accounting methodology just doesn't apply. And trying to talk to a finance department of, let's do this a different way, that can be extremely challenging.
So building on the challenges then, Alex and panel team, we've spoken quite a bit about challenges today, but I'm wondering, what do you think are the key tips for success? Flipping the coin to the other side, what are the key tips for success you would recommend for succeeding and enhancing agility?
I mean, it again. I think you made a great point before. Actually, it is hard, and recognizing that it's hard is important. I think for tips for success. I mean, I've tried a number of different ways. So when I've tried to work in organizations, I've gone with the approach of, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to build this. I'll get enough support. I'll go ahead and I'll make this happen. The skunk work approach, if you like. And while you can get some limited success with that, you can often get a product out. You don't really change the organization. It then just relies on one person or a group of people driving things forward. The theory that that if you can do it once, you'll get the momentum behind it. I'm not sure I always agree with that. I think you might get some momentum, but it'll be reliant on that person who's going to blaze the trail and their energy levels and how long they can keep going. I think when you look at it overall, you really do have to address the entire system. I think you've got to create that ecosystem within the company where you can balance the traditional role of we've got these business models that are already exists that are already creating us revenue, and we want to execute on those business models, and then getting the organization to really get to that place where they can go, well, we've got that part of our business, but we also need this other part of the business, which is where we search for new business models, where we start to look at new products, where we start to design new things, and recognize that they're two different things, and that you need a different management structure, a different strategy, a different portfolio management approach around these two different buckets. That's where I've seen more success. It's never perfect and it's not easy, but I think you do have to look at the entirety of the company and the innovation ecosystem, and not just rely on one methodology.
I couldn't agree more, Alex. I think it's the totality. I'm looking at the comments as well. I also spent quite a lot of time kind of thinking the top get it, the engineers at the bottom get it. It's the people in the middle, and that was my master's research. Was the big outcome from that was managers are critical to transformation, right? Managers really matter, but we haven't given them any information. So Agile was very much an engineering solution to an engineer's problem. Beautiful abstraction, lovely. And Agile's done a great job for engineering and for quite a lot of knowledge work. But still, we haven't said anything to bring managers along. And actually, I'm starting to think that the C-level don't really get it. They get the idea of what the figures might be doing if it's working, but they don't really know how to lead it.
And I agree. I think we as an organisation have, as a community, I think we've missed the fact that actually we've got to support those leaders more than actually everybody else. I mean, it's crazy to believe, and had some great conversations with some of the people here this evening over the last few months, Alistair and Neil and other people. The challenge is that we have these teams which are doing really, really well, to your point, Russ, and they're getting it. It's an engineering success, and everybody's seeing that. However, for whatever reason, the language, the vernacular, the vocabulary of all of this stuff was somehow designed to piss off the middle management, right? To a degree, okay?
Yeah.
And the idea that actually created a level of resistance or friction with them. We've actually done them a disservice. As I said in one of my talks, it's not all their fault. No. The point is that actually we've got to support them on that journey, that middle management team, probably more than any part of the organization, because they're the ones which will come up with the anti-agile propaganda. They're the ones which will come along and spout all the negatives that it doesn't work for them, or somehow their job is at risk. And I know I had that great conversation with Al at another event recently. The point being is, of course, that isn't the case. That's not the reality out of that. You summed it up perfectly, Russ, when you said we need managers to help with these transformations and evolutions and everything else that has to go on in an organization. So therefore, we actually need to make sure that they're set up for success, have an appreciation and awareness of ways of working. For 20 years, this way of working has been around, if not longer. I know we had the 25th anniversary of Scrum back on October the 19th, and obviously the new version of the Scrum Guide that came out a couple of weeks ago. But still the challenge remains. The manifesto created February 2001, right? And the challenge is, we've seen some amazing successes in organizations, especially in our engineering and technology throughput, delivering amazing outcomes, delighting customers all over the world. But still the challenge remains that actually 80%, 70% of other organizations are working in other ways, with old sort of bureaucratic processes, old ways of working, old traditional or fixed mindsets, not the growth mindset. And so, of course, who's the odd one out? Who's the small partner in all of this? The engineering teams, the technology teams. And so, of course, it's about how do we leverage the successes they've seen across the rest of the organization. And that's the thing which I think, we've missed the trick on over the last 20 years. If the Scrum Guide had come out 20 years ago or 25 years ago going, and guess what? You can do this with the finance team, and you can do this with the marketing team, and you can do this with the legal team, I think things would possibly be in a different position. It's funny, only having had that conversation with somebody yesterday at a different event, it was still fresh in my mind to share this evening.
I think as well, there's a little bit of a tendency, and I was guilty of this until very, very recently. There's a bit of a tendency for agile thinkers to go system thinking. We need to see it as a system. Oh my goodness, the system is wrongly designed for the purpose it's now being asked to do. And the agile, the framework approach to that is stop doing what you're doing because it's wrong and design a better system that's going to be right. And I think that's the mistake at the moment from the agile lens. I admire this about the principles of Kanban, is start with where you are. Whatever it is, right? Start with that and just start improving. And I suppose I learned this through coaching. I've been to some professional coaching, guys. I got a qualification. You have to go to where people are. You can't say, well, I wouldn't start from here if I were you. You've got to go. You are there. Okay, I'll come to you and we'll look at your context through your lens, through your, I might think differently. I might think you're wrong and a bully, but I'll try and step over and be empathetic with you. And I'll try and see the world a little bit through your eyes so that I can be of better service to you.
I think, Russ, what's really quite interesting there is that actually a lot of the processes that are in existing businesses are really quite good at achieving what they want to achieve. So a lot of these processes have been put in place to manage business models which they know well, which already have large markets. That their real plan is to execute on these business models, which often means I've got to save cost, I've got to be careful where I spend, I've got to put these processes in place that protect that type of business model, which is all really, really good for that context. But actually, when you're trying to do something different, when you're trying to do something new, when you're trying to innovate and create something from scratch, or even develop an existing idea further, that same approach doesn't work. And I think this is where it gets confused a lot, is that you've got to apply the right tool to the right job, and you wouldn't necessarily use the same technique to run an existing business that's really quite going well, and you want to get every last bit of value out of it, as you would if you're trying to create a startup business. it's different.
I'm loving the side chat. Is thinking hard or not?
It's a great topic, and I know we're going to come back to the chat and some of these amazing things that the community have added here this evening at the end, and ask obviously for interaction. I'm going to come in with the next question, if that's okay. Oh yeah, sorry, Ash.
Add a couple things. So,
oh, sorry,
Alex, completely agree with you that I mean, Agile is not a true blue Agile methodology is not appropriate for every situation, for sure. Enhancing agility, I think we could all be a bit more agile in what we do. But if you so choose that Agile is the right approach for a team or an organization or a portfolio approach, I just wanted to build on to a point Russ was making about starting small and just thinking really practically, you know, how can we help organizations succeed more? I mean, and coming back to the point on a lack of comfort with ambiguity and the unknown, some things that I find help to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and changing the ways of working is by speaking some hard truths. Just start constantly questioning, is this the best way we can be doing this? Question yourself, question your team, question your teams and meetings, question, will it be riskier to not change what we're doing than to change the approach? And, you know, if we can make it through a global pandemic and find the strength to make it through this year and be here together on another video call after an entire day of video conferences, we can find the strength to ask and say hard things and start opening the dialogue and have this Kaizen mindset and get the ball rolling. So start small, leverage what works in organizations and with teams, develop that comfort and ambiguity with reassurance, encouragement at all levels, top and down. You leverage what you've got, establish a community of practice or center of excellence in your organization to define what best practices are, invest in your talent, upskill people with trainings or coaches or external consultants, whatever you need to do, whatever your budget allows, and then slowly build that momentum and trust, celebrate the wins and see it through to the magic. If you can get past that forming and storming to get to norming and performing, then everyone sees and feels the magic and the beauty of what this is all about and why we're all here on this call right now to enhance this, because there's a lot of beauty and magic when you get Agile done going right.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I'm going to get more agile in my questions then, and make sure I get my partner in crime in to answer some of the questions as well. So, look, next thing I think that we want to discuss really is we've been sat here and we mentioned earlier, obviously, global pandemics and a lot of our answers and a lot of the discussion points. The question I've got is, how has the current global environment impacted organizations' abilities to actually become more agile, to actually see more of that sort of organizational agility across the board? We're not having those serendipitous moments any longer. We're not in an office environment. We're not going for the coffees and the lunches and the quick sort of shout across an office, "Oi, Dave, can you just pop over here a second and help me out with something?" You know, gone is that, right? And so things take longer with process now as well. You know, to even have that serendipitous moment with Dave, I've got to ping him on Slack, which creates attention diversion and context switching for him. And, you know, it doesn't help him in any way, shape or form, even though I need help all of a sudden. So how do we think, and Alex, I'm going to come to you. How do you think that this change has actually impacted organizations like yours and others out there to actually become more agile?
I mean, it's an interesting one. I've definitely seen two kind of reactions, two major type of reactions. I think one, unfortunately, a few of the businesses I work with have done all right during the pandemic, and interestingly enough, they've probably gone down the approach of, well, I'm going to be really be less willing to try different things and try new things, and actually I want to stick to what we're good at, and I don't really want to take too many risks at the moment. I just want to hanker down and get through this thing. So that's kind of one approach I've seen. albeit the classic, you know, we have to very quickly deal with working from home and figure out how we accept that, you know, when we don't necessarily trust our people or be working hard enough. So I've seen that approach, and then equally I've seen the other, where actually, you know, our key revenue income and our streams and our business, the key things that we've been kind of relying on for a long time, are now under great threat. And actually, we have to be extremely agile and start to really quickly create new things and approach markets in different ways, you know, than we ever have before. Because if we don't, and if we don't change now, then we're gone, we're finished, our business is over. So I've kind of seen both of those extreme reactions. Unfortunately, both aren't really great. I think we're going to move quickly and make some really big decisions and not get time to think it through, because we've got to be so quick, and so and you get that bit of panic. Can mean that you end up placing the wrong bets, and you know, feel like you haven't got the time to actually think it through properly. And then equally, when you kind of go, well, actually, we don't want to do anything new. We just want to stick to what we're doing. It's going to get us through. We don't want to take any risks. Then you find that, you know, the innovators in the company are starting to leave. So, you know, both reactions I've seen a little bit. But I think the big thing is, and everyone recognizes this from the different types of businesses I've been talking to, is this whole digital transformation has massively accelerated. You know, there's some really, really great stats out there that show that we've, you know, effectively done, you know, 10 years in digital development, digital transformation in the space of a matter of months. So very interesting.
I'm going to quickly share just a quick meme that Alistair shared with me not many weeks ago, which is the fun one, along the lines of, who's actually driving your digital transformation? Is it the CEO? Is it the CFO? Or is it actually COVID? And I think for the best part, we know it is the third on that list. That's the one that's actually accelerated some of the stuff that obviously Alex was talking about.
Yeah, it's forced change. It's moved things along. I mean, look at the world of conferencing. You know, conferencing has changed forever. It could have supported remote digital attendees 10 years ago, but nobody wanted to do it. So I see that as very positive. You know, leaders that were happy to sit back and go, yeah, don't want to take any risks. They've had to. The other thing that I think we've seen is two really, really good things that are familiar in the kind of agile canon. One is reducing your work in progress, get rid of everything that's not top of the list. And I think people have seen just how effective that can be. So you don't have much time to go, oh, I've got another great idea, go and do this. You've got to schedule those meetings. You know, you have limited time with teams. So you work out what you're going to do, you put it on the list, and you let people get on with it. So that's the first, is that much better prioritizing, really clearing out everything that's not top priority, focusing. And then the human aspect, I think, has really come up. There was some research done by my colleagues at Henley, and they found that leaders that went into lockdown vulnerably and said, I don't know what this means or what to do, but we're kind of going to do it together. That paid off big time, and they got tremendous support from employees just because they showed that, you know, and they learned to kick off meetings with, how is everybody feeling? Let's just go around the room. So just introducing that and normalizing that, I think that's been hugely valuable. Now, what happens when we go out of lockdown and we've got vaccines and everybody's feeling strong? That I really don't know. That's the retrenchment. But those are the really big impacts that I find very, very positive. Forcing change, forcing focus, and actually encouraging people to say, you know what, I can be human in front of my colleagues.
I think going back to some of the points Ashley raised, actually, in answering the last topic. I think we need to make sure if we are going to go back into an office environment, all the positivities we've learned and all that sort of the growth mindset we've experienced because of being sort of pretty much forced through it, we take with us when we go back into the office environment, and we don't revert back to some of those traditional norms and behaviors that we used to do. But at the same time, you know, if there are, to your point, Russ, an ability for us to actually remove some of the negativity, just focus on delivering the things that actually have the most value and are the things that actually require the attention to deliver and delight a customer and support the organization the right way, then so be it. It's a mixture. So it's a weird dichotomy between, obviously, you know, as you said, sort of renormalizing ourselves back in an office environment, but at the same time, there's been so many positives because of lockdown and because of these new ways of working, and how we've all adapted and sort of grown because of it. It's phenomenal.
Absolutely. And actually, I think now is probably a good time to move into probably the final question for the panel, just being conscious of time, because I know there's a lot of questions growing in the backlog of questions. So I guess, Russ, over to you to kick off. Agile's going to be 20 years old in February. Scott Seavright, I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, but Scott Seavright or Seavright is holding a world-size festival to celebrate this, and be sure to register if you haven't already. And I guess the question over to you is, has Agile had its moment in terms of improving organizations?
Yeah, boy. Well, lots of people have tried to, you know, we've tried post-agile and dark scrum and
Agile 2.0.
2.0, 10.0. Have you got that website, Charles?
No.
Yeah.
2.0, yes, not 10.0.
For me, it is the stuff about management. I think it's time for Agile to embrace management. I know it started off 25 really is when the movement started, 25, 30 years ago, of being a bit anti-management. You know, there was a recognition that management were dysfunctional, and certainly that's not new. But that's not an Agile dysfunction, and that's not something Agile attempted to change. I think the wording has shifted now. We now talk about enterprise. We talk about digital transformation, by the way, is not engineering. It's a transformation whereby organizations make better use of the assets that they've got, which obviously includes managers. So I'm liking that. But does that mean that the Agile label has kind of about to fade into the distance? I don't know. The one thing that I will say, I'm volunteering for Scott's Festival, and I'm in the academic circle, which feels really strange because I'm a practitioner just flirting with academia. And we are, what we're calling for papers. And in fact, this is a call right now for papers. Anybody that's doing any type of academic research, please come along to the site. It's agile20reflect.org. I put these pages up last night. So there are calls for academic posters. So if you're doing any kind of postgraduate research on Agile, the festival wants to know about it so that we can publicize Agile research. The very first literature review, systematic literature review of Agile coaching has just been published this year. So 2019, 2020, we're starting to see proper scientific academic research on Agile. So it's kind of on one side, it's coming of age, and the other side, it's starting to be part of the furniture. It's just starting to be it's something that organizations do. We do a bit of Agile. So bit mixed, I think, for me.
Ash, I'm going to bring you in next. What do you think? And what's your sense check in this of beyond 20 years of the Agile world and the Agile mindset?
Yeah, I have to agree with Russ, really. But I guess it depends on which type of clients I'm working with. You've got the ones that have embraced Agile for ages and are really pushing the limits and going to the next best thing, whatever that may be. And then a lot of the clients and organizations I do work with are actually still trying to get their foot on the first rung of the ladder and master the brilliant basics. I've seen a bit of a difference also between, I'm American, FYI, to those of you that couldn't tell by the accent. And in my counterparts in the US, I think some of the organizations that I've encountered there and worked with there, I think they probably started the journey a little bit before organizations here in the UK. I'm absolutely welcome to be challenged on that. I have no scientific proof to that. It's just things that I've heard and experienced over the course of my experiences. But I still, I think it's mixed. I think it's a blend. I completely agree, Russ. But I still think there is, for many organizations even, still some fun yet to be had with getting their foot on the first step of the ladder. Jazz, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with, I think, all the points that we've just been raising. I hope that my good friend Alistair is here, and perhaps when we get into the Q&A session, he can come in. But he and I both have discussed this numerous times over the last, I don't know how many months, 6 months or so. And the point being is that because we didn't do the kind of the whole organizational agility piece a service early on in process, because we pissed off too many people, we didn't bring the people who needed the most support on the journey at the right time, through the evolving world and mindsets and philosophy and values and principles of agile over the years. I think we're trying to do that now, and some people might say it's a little bit too late. But go back 20 years ago, everybody started talking about, are we now an internet-enabled company, right? Do we have broadband? Do we have website? Gone is that as part of the conversation anymore. Everybody is internet-enabled. Everyone, when they're not having BT broadband issues and being dropped off their own meetups for the evening, are actually able to, have active broadband and do things really well. The challenge still remains. I think we still are somehow thinking, or some people think agile is a silver bullet or the blue pill, green pill, red pill, whatever it is, and somehow going to save the day and make a change for making a difference in organizations. I don't know what the answer is. I'd like to think that in 10 years' time, we're not even having this conversation. We've rebranded the meetup to something else, leadership instead, right? So the word or the term agile, the proper noun agile, is gone. And perhaps it is just the adverb agility describing that's what we actually need within our organizations. Perhaps we don't need to change the name of the meetup. But the point remains that I think, we still have it too much in conversation today. Too many senior leaders also who may have experienced a really bad digital transformation or a bad agile adoption in an organization now are sort of resent it and kind of go against it and put the walls up as well. And we need to obviously do better with them and actually help them and support them overcome any resistance or friction they've previously had, so that going forwards, again, agile just isn't part of the conversation, and negative or positive or otherwise, it just is. It just is the thing that underpins a sort of removal of command and control, bureaucracy, micromanagement, and we get better norms and ways of working going in, in the future. When I started as a manager, I was really crap. My wife knows that. She's just sat there smiling away. But I was really, really, really bad as a manager, because the previous people I had as managers who I aspired, I only had to copy them. And they were all bureaucratic and command and control, and had spent 30, 40 years of their careers working in those ways with those norms. And that's not a negative thing. It was, right? It's de facto. And so, of course, I came along and started being a manager, and I just copied them. It was literally, like mini boss, quite literally. And so I realized then very early on, and it's a very similar sort of journey to Russ, having some of that coaching, having some of that management and leadership training as well. I suddenly realized that, I didn't want this. And I've been saying for years, I didn't want to end up being the same as these people. And so I had to evolve myself and change myself, and the learnings and the journey and the personal sort of discovery. I had to go on to do that. But then I changed, and, my makeup now is that responsible servant leader in an organization. And I want those people that follow me in an organization for that just to be the norm. so that they aren't following anybody else, and we somehow wipe out over time command and control and micromanagement and bureaucracy, to having these responsible servant leaders in organization that other people aspire to follow, and they end up actually being the same and operating and acting the same way when they become managers and leaders in their own organizations as well. I'll get off my soapbox.
Well said.
Yeah, that's so true. You know, managers learn management by being managed, and they are quite conservative by nature because that's how they've succeeded. So it's a huge ask. Well, it's a ridiculous ask for somebody to experiment with all of that by throwing it away and go, well, I'll just do a safe to fail experiment.
Yeah, agree. Look, I mean, can I just share? I want to say thanks, obviously, to Alex and Russ for their awesome insights, and to my partner in crime, Ash, for some amazing thought leadership as well. I want to go in to some of the questions that we've got that have come up, and my God, I didn't realize I need to scroll that far back. Wow, there's some great things that have come in. I'm going to save this chat and actually share it online afterwards for those people that want it. Andrea's asked a question, and it says, similar to Jerome's question, there seems to be a major disconnect between visions and ideas at the C-level, concerned with quarterly results and mid-level management, implementing this in a world of spreadsheets and legal finance reporting requirements, supported by the C-suite, leading to people at the doing level losing the purpose of the business, and thus motivation causing huge issues with turnover. What do you think what would be the first or best thing to do to address this disconnect? And obviously that's Alex or Russ, please feel free to step in and help answer Andrea's question.
I mean that's a very complex question, and it is quite an interesting way to look at it. I mean, when you kind of go back into organizations and generally how they were set up, yeah, it was the leaders, you know, the executives who were coming up with the ideas. They were the ones coming up with the strategies. They were coming up with their visions, and then they were, you know, pushing it down through middle management for the people who were actually at the coalface or the engineers to actually then implement. And so when you then kind of go, well, actually we're coming up with a different strategy here now. We're saying, well, actually we'll go and figure out what the ideas are, and we'll talk to our customers, and we'll bring that back to you, and then we'll feed that up through middle management, and now you know, that will then be involved in setting the strategy. So you can see that from you know, the way organizations have traditionally been to the way that they're moving to, there is a massive disconnect in the way they are structured. Again, I mean, it's hard to say what the exact solution to these things are, but I kind of always go back to some parts of the business are actually fine to run in the traditional way. Yeah. And that's okay. That's okay to run in the traditional way, because if you know what you're doing, you've got a high level of certainty, then actually it is all about executing and managing really, really well and effectively, and actually you'll get a good result out of that. So, you know, so I think where the biggest disconnect comes for me is when you're actually trying to venture into new areas, when you're trying to create something new, create something that customers want, and create something that creates value for the organization. That's where I think, you know, particularly this way of working really shines. And I think accepting that there's often two parts to an organization. There's the part that is actually just about continuing to exploit what the organization is already good at and is making them effective money. And there's this way of searching for new opportunities in the future, and recognizing there's different ways to manage both of those is probably a good start.
Brilliant.
I
Another
don't know if
question?
that answered the question.
Yeah, I just was waiting, Russ. If you did, you have anything you wanted to share with that?
Well, to be honest, I was going to agree, really. You know, I think smaller firms, startups are just, they are intrinsically more agile. So the problems, and you only transform if you're in trouble, right? So it is large organizations that are in trouble and are transforming. And they know, you know, they know the problems, but they're all going, I can hang on personally for another 3 years. And we have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge the fact that our survival instinct is the greatest driving force, that everybody sitting at that top table, they are all there and wanting to hang on. The second biggest force that they're experiencing is their emotional force. And there's a bias called confirmation bias. They've believed in this stuff for 20 years, for their whole careers. So the smallest voice that's going on is the one that says intellectually, you know, that what you're doing isn't right and there's a better way. It doesn't have much of a chance to get through, you know? So I think being able to somehow facilitate that and say, guys, what got us there was fantastic. Let's honor that. Let's be, you know, we've made a lot of money. And, you know, there are certain parts of the business where we can still go on doing like that and being and exploiting people. And that's fine. But for the rest of you that want to move, there is a different way. And I honestly say the way I'm pitching it now is it's just a different pair of lenses. I'm going to share a pair of lenses with you, a set of lenses that's going to let you see things differently. It uses all of your expertise and your knowledge. It'll just let you see 10% more in a different way. And it's that when you don't know what the outcome is going to be, you can't work back from that. You can't plan backwards. So for those few situations where you can't tell me the solution blueprint is in that filing cabinet over there, for those things, let's use a different control mechanism. Let's amplify outcomes and filter down, it's got to be ready by a certain date. Yeah, acknowledge that those are important. I understand the organization needs to plan around resources and deliver. I get all of that, and it's not important. But let's filter that down and let's promote some of the stuff that is kind of iterative and incremental.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Russ. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to just ask Ash if she's got anything to add.
Yes.
Agile before I move on to the next one.
I don't on this one. I actually just prepped the next question, blending together a couple questions, because I think we probably just have time for 2 more. And I saw in the chain and scrolling up and down, there were a number of folks, starting off with Alistair, who asked, are some Agilistas suffering from wanting to reach perfection somehow? Some improvement, however small, can have a huge impact. And there was a pretty big chain on this, over towards Julia asking a follow-on question about being curious to know, how can we nudge change and help make any sort of change easier, especially if you're in an organization that doesn't grant autonomy to lead by example?
That's a great
Good
question.
Questions.
That's a tough question. Alistair, I'm going to actually just bring in, because there's part and parcel of the discussion. What insights would you have? I mean, yours was part of the question here as well. Have you got anything you would share with the audience and the community here?
Wow. Wasn't planning to speak, so give my
no, but your question, so I'm bringing you in.
No, I'm loving where we are with this, in terms of the fact that, you know, we need to be gentle with people. And I think something I notice about human beings whenever they find something new is they go crazy. They become, you know, sort of evangelists about the thing, and they want everyone to know about it. And we've all gone through that with something or other, whether it's a diet, whether it's a fitness fad, whether it's whatever. And we've all, you know, found a magic potion and desperately wanted to share it with everybody. And I think that's the same for Agile. You know, whether it's the big A or the little A. And I think the more that people come across people like the great folks who have been speaking today, and hear the serenity that is in your voices, and the compassion and the thought that has gone through, I think the more people hear that, the more they will just be naturally attracted to it, I think. And I think and in terms of the nudging thing, I've only just sort of come across that for the first time today. I'm looking forward to looking at that a little bit in more detail. But I suspect that it is like everything. It's that whole idea of, let's put our arms around someone's shoulder, as you said, Ash. Start small. Let's not scare people. Let's just take them with them on a path. I think the comfort zone, the survival instinct, that emotional force that we have is hugely powerful. And people who have things happen to them at a very early age, still at the age of 70 and 80, are still troubled by some of those things that happened when they were children. So we must learn to work with the human brain and human emotions and so forth. And I think, and when we talk about moving out of the comfort zone, we need to understand that if you push somebody too far, they go into the panic zone and they recoil back, and their comfort zone becomes smaller. And the way to help somebody get out of their comfort zone is to move into the stretch zone first. It's the zone just before the panic zone. And if we just move into there and then help them step back quickly and then move in again, and slowly that zone becomes bigger and they are more open to, new things and growth mindsets and so on. And I think to me, what's the rush? Why are we in a rush to try and get everybody on board tomorrow? Why don't we just enjoy the journey with them and not scare them? And there's another book about a 1% increase or 5% increase, or something to do with nudge, where you just do a little bit, and a little bit of increments over time are exponential. But if you try and jump, you just scare everybody, and everybody runs back into their cave. I
love that idea of pushing back against the rush, because transformation, well, it's scheduled for the next 18 months and it starts on Monday, but why? It is a very long journey.
Yeah, exactly. No, I've thoroughly enjoyed listening today. It's been awesome. You guys, really lovely insights.
Thank you.
If okay, I've got one that I want to share, which I've really enjoyed reading from the chat. And it comes from Tom. Hi, Tom. I know you're here with us. Yeah. And it says, if agile is analogous to human development, then at 20 years old, it's only reaching adulthood. Most people have now heard of it and have dabbled in it, but I think it'll probably take another 20 years for it to become the norm and really start to be a driver in more traditional businesses. And I think that's absolutely. And was there anything else that you wanted to share or add on top of that from the points you were raising?
No, not particularly. I mean, I'm relatively new to this. I'm not an agile practitioner myself, but I sit in a lot of organisations who claim to be agile, and whether they are or not is left to the interpretation of those people that are trying to deliver projects and programs mainly within them. But I think I've worked with a lot of businesses over the years. Many of them claim to be delivering agile, and are they really doing agile in the way that I believe it should be done, or the way that Ashley explains to me it should be done? It's probably a better way of saying it. No, they're not. They're not considering the customer journey. They're not considering the friction points. They are doing a waterfall program and pasting the words agile in the appropriate boxes. So I think most people want to. I think most people have heard of it. Most people understand that it'll get them somewhere. It's just going to take a little bit more maturity and a little bit more openness to the failures. Alex talks about the fact that the minute it all goes wrong, everyone just reverts to type. They've got numbers to hit, and waterfall works for them, or traditional business processes work for them. And I've experienced that with Alex. And I think it's just going to take a lot longer for the world to really embrace agile and go for it. But 20 years old, I think it's going great guns.
Awesome, look at that. Round of applause there. We'll take that, Tom. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, I agree. You know, there's far too many companies doing the I know approach, agile in name only, and you know, they couldn't be further from the truth. You know, and they go around, I know agile. No, you well done. So yeah, you're absolutely spot on. Thank you very much for sharing.
Hey, Tom's inspired me to ask everybody else a question, panel included. You can vote with the little hand thing. How many of you avoid the term agile?
Can I cover up the word behind me? No, that says agility. It's good. It's an adverb. I'm happy. Yeah,
I think it is really interesting, Russ, and I have actually worked with Tom before, and yeah, it's amazing the words you kind of start to use, because people have had these, oh yeah, I've heard of this agile thing. It doesn't really involve any planning, and I don't really like this, and you know, the last time I heard about that, it didn't work, or it went over budget, or it took longer than it should, and so, you know, how do you reframe that to, I generally talk about delivering value early. How do we deliver some value early rather than wait for a big bang moment down the track and turns out we didn't deliver anything. So yeah, but it is strange. And a point with Tom, I just wonder if we kind of think about that analogy a bit further, and you go, well, it's taken 20 years to get where it is now. Well, in another 20 years, the people's the next generation of leaders will be in who have probably grown up with it a lot more, and then I definitely think you'll see it part of the mainstream then.
Yeah, I agree, and I think a few of us actually would agree with you with that statement here this evening as well. Look, it's about time to wrap up, and can I say personal thanks and apologies for crazy internet connections earlier, especially on our inaugural event. I know Alex was having the same thing as well, and we had people dropping off and coming back on because of connection issues. Hopefully British Telecom have resolved them now. But I just really want to pass on my appreciation and thanks to not only Russ and Alex for being here today and actually sharing their wisdom and thought leadership with us all. Obviously Ash for being awesome and helping obviously relaunch agility leadership, but also to everybody here, all the guests, everybody who's actually shared an insight. The chat this evening has been absolutely awesome with some great topics, and I ask you all to just use the 3 dots down at the bottom in the chat window and click on save chat before I close down the Zoom window, because there are some great links, there's some great insights, and you know, please do, you know, read some of the stuff that has been shared by the amazing people who've joined us here this evening. Ash, I'll hand over to you.
Well, I think that wraps it up perfectly, Giles. And thank you to you, Giles, for launching this and co-organizing and letting us use your fantastic Zoom link as well. I guess we can just flag, you know, we've got our next event, 19th of January. Sooner, safer, happier, anti-patterns, patterns. Please send it if you want. And really, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, because we'll see you in 2021 with the next event. That's us done for the rest of the calendar year.
Wow.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you for all the amazing people that we often see at these events who support us with all of these things. I really am humbled with that. Thank you to my wife, who gets a special mention for putting up with me doing these things as well. But again, Russ and Alex, thank you very much indeed for coming along. You guys have been awesome, so thanks.
And thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you guys, it was great. And I have actually saved the chat. It's such a good idea.
Very good.
See you all in 2021.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you later, guys. Bye.